Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about the 2026 race for California governor. And you may be asking yourself, well, why are we talking about the California governor's race? Isn't it going to automatically be a Democratic governor who's elected in 2026? And to that I would tell you most likely yes, but I want to specifically talk about a rare scenario. So for the fact of the matter, it's important to note that California elects individuals through a open primary system where the top two candidates advance to the general election. So hypothetically, two Democrats can advance to the general election, or two Republicans can. Of course, one Republican and one Democrat can as well, but it's open primary, so it allows for perhaps two Democrats or perhaps two Republicans to advance to the general election, unlike other states. So I make note of this because we've had in recent days this idea that perhaps Republicans have an open opportunity to win this governor's race. Well, how? Because of that open primary system, where Republicans could perhaps, their two top leading candidates on the Republican side could be the two with the most votes to advance to the general election, giving voters in California no choice besides two different Republican governors. Now, I want to make note that this is a very rare scenario. The primary in California isn't for another few months in June, so there's plenty of time for Democrats to get this sorted out, to which I believe they will. I don't foresee the Democrats actually losing this race, but of course, I mean, with this on the radar, it's important to kind of talk about it and make note of it. And I also kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on the state of the race in California as well. So let's go ahead and get started into this. So if we look at recent polls between the candidates running in this race, the top four candidates include Chad Bianco, who I believe is a sheriff from a county in California, Steve Hilton, Katie Porter, a former congresswoman from the state, and then Eric Swalwell, a current congressman from the state. So this is important to note. We have two Republicans and two Democrats who appear to be the top four really candidates running in this race. Of course, there's some chance that maybe someone like Tom Steyer, could come in and perhaps be competitive. But at this point, I would say the top four candidates include Katie Porter, Eric Swalwell, Steve Hilton, and Chad Bianco. Now, what you might make note of is the fact that in a lot of these polls, Chad Bianco, the Republican, and Steve Hilton, the other Republican, are getting the most votes. They have the most percentage of votes here in this race for the primary to be California's next governor. Why is that important? Again, because California nominates their candidates through an open primary system, which could hypothetically allow for two Republicans to advance to the general election. Now, of course, there are some polls that have Eric Swalwell and Chad Bianco as the two leading candidates. And then there's some that have Chad Bianco tied with Eric Swalwell, with Steve Hilton leading the pack. So, of course, the exact winner of this race is far out. But it's important to note the averages on these races. I mean, we're seeing even Real Clear Politics and the race to the White House have these two candidates as the leading candidates for this primary in California to be the next governor. Of course, 270 to Win has Katie Porter and Eric Hilton I keep mispronouncing names, that's my apologies, and Steve Hilton as the two leading candidates. But overall, we're seeing this outcome that could result in two Republicans being the two candidates that face each other in the general election in November. Like I said before at the beginning of this video, I don't necessarily expect this to happen, but I want to talk about it because it is important and it could play an important part in this race. So with that said, I want to take a look at backtracking to this race and look at how this race was decided about 4 years ago, 5 years ago as well, during the recall election, and then again 8 years ago when Gavin Newsom was originally elected California governor. So both times that Gavin Newsom was elected, he faced a Republican. In the general election, I should say, he faced a Republican for this seat to be California's governor. So in 2022, he ran the race and he won by 18.4%. 4 years earlier, he had won this race by 23.9%. And then in 2021, he faced a recall election to which he won that by 23.7%. Now, I want to take a deeper look at each of these. I want to start by talking about the 2018 California governor's race. He faced John Cox, and Gavin Newsom won 61.95% of the vote in 2018. Of course, this was a Democratic wave year. Unexpected, really, when a Democrat faces a Republican in the state. The Democrat typically is going to pull out ahead in an election like this. I want to move over to the 2021 recall election, where many people believed at first that this actually had a shot of removing Gavin Newsom as the governor. It ultimately ended up not happening at all. People voted no on this in a margin of 61.88%. So that's similar to what he won by 3 years earlier. So, of course, he was not recalled, and he faced re-election in 2022, facing Brian Dow, where he won 59.18% of the vote, so winning that race by, like I said before, what was it, about 19%? Yeah, 18.4%. So this is important when we talk about the race to be the next California governor. This race is certainly going to be competitive. We knew it would be, and there's a lot of Democrats running in the race. What I expect to happen is perhaps maybe some of these lower named candidates may end up dropping out of this race in fear that it could lead to a Republican governor. Of course, I'm not positive and I'm not an expert on California politics, but I think that might be the most likely scenario as to what happens. But of course, we'll have to wait and see how this race shapes out heading into June, when this race will ultimately be decided and the two leading candidates will face off in November. So of course, like I said before, I think maybe perhaps the most likely scenario is for some of these lower named Democrats to decide to drop out. Of course, there could be a high fear that if they don't, this will lead to a Republican governor in the state. And I think a lot of Democrats do not want their name tied to that. So they'd much rather have a Republican face a Democrat, or two Democrats face each other in the general election. So ultimately, we will see what happens in this race, but I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to make note that as of right now, the two leading candidates happen to be Republicans. And if the primary was held today, there's a high chance, I would say, or at least somewhat of a high chance, that the two candidates that would advance to the general election would be Republicans. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think there's any chance for California to elect a Republican governor in 2026 in such a, what we expect to be such a Democratic wave year? Is there a chance that Republicans could pull off an upset and win a race that typically is unwinnable? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know what you think will happen leading into the June primary. I look forward to reading through your comments and what you guys think will ultimately end up happening in this race in June, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.